Alright, hello everyone, Maurice here, and today I'm bringing you an early Epic Era meta report for Axie Origins Season 5. Wow, what a meta we have now. So, first of all, we have 13, well, I would say sub-archetypes at the top 100, and it's just crazy. It's like the meta is very diverse at the moment, meaning a lot of different archetypes can actually make it to the top. The key thing, of course, like Topaz actually interestingly coming back and is doing well, and that kind of two meta breakers here, Hot Butt and Confused. So let's just get into the data and see how it looks. So first of all, I mean, the distribution, you can see there's just a lot of different archetypes. Still, of course, Leafy is still like the most popular. Main reason, I mean, it is still quite strong, right? I mean, it's just still very strong, but it has its weaknesses. And mainly it's because it's really, now I feel that it's really about the breeder, right? At the moment, it is really just about, well, in the pre-season or off-season, right? What kind of axes the breeders are breeding and what people are hyping up, and then people will breed a lot, and then then at the moment a lot of leafy axes are available. Having said that, Topaz, because of previous seasons, is also very popular because people have the Axes for Topaz and it is also very strong. So that's why Leafy and Topaz are the main ones and Sustain as well. All right, so that's why you see these three are the most popular at the top. You can see similarly here as well. But it is not really about the power level, but at this point, it's literally more about the Axes availability. Okay, so there are other things as well, like poison. We still see a bit of poison. Jinx actually managed to get to the top as well, and then we have some new stuff like Hot Bud. Yeah, the Leafy Tri-Spike stuff still there, and then Glorious Mane actually making it to the top as well, and then there are really a lot of interesting stuff. So Confused is one of those archetypes. Like it kind of came back. Well, it used to be called Swirl in that sense because Swirl was just so strong, but now Swirl was nerfed, but it is still good enough, right? With Confused and other things as well. And then we have Story Fighter, the pure damage variant of Story Fighter still up there. And then Sponge and Tiny Fan as well. So these are very interesting archetypes. So meaning there are a lot of creative ways in which you can actually play this epic era. And that's just, well, why this game is so good, right? Is just that you can come up with creative teams and actually manage to make it to the top 100. And there are other teams as well. And sorry that like the pie chart is really a bit messy. At some point, you can see here you can't really see much, and that's just because there are just so many different archetypes or sub archetypes rather. Yeah. So here you can see. Let me see what else that I've missed here. Triple R, yes. So Triple R actually, I think it was on the top 100 and then bumped down to the top 200, but Triple R is still there. We see a Cocoon Piranha up there as well, so that's more new stuff. And then maybe a bit of Purge, AOE maybe as well, and Sandal actually. Sandal, I think it was up at top 200 at some point, and then of course it really depends on when I take the snapshot, right? Um, yeah, so instead of like looking at this, which you can't see much, I actually have a table form here as well if you're interested. Definitely check out the blog post if you want the yeah, more information, especially checking out this kind of tables. Okay, so that is for the archetype. Yeah, it's just everything really is up there. I can see it's just such a diverse meta. So let's just look at the win rate, all right? And here are the win rates of the archetypes, all right? It's getting a bit too long to even like fit in one page, so I'll probably just scroll during this video. So first of all, is that Topaz, right, is in a very good position at the moment. Topaz above 55 percent win rate is very good, I must say, right? This is just a very good climb, right? If you just have Topaz and consistently winning like more than 50% of the game, it will be a good climb. Leafy is still good, right? Having said that, like it has its counter, like things like Topaz, and that's why it is 50%. A lot of the time, of course, it's also mirror matches as well. But yeah, it's just have a pretty even matchup. So Leafy is still good, but it's just like not the meta breaker. I would say Topaz will be one of them, but there are actually other stronger archetypes that I'll go into. And yeah, let's just go into those. And they are Hot Butt and Confused. So these two are really doing pretty well. So yeah, Hotbot. It's just I guess maybe it's the new curse kind of team, but of course it is more no, a bit different from like Jinx. Jinx is not doing as well. It's still doing okay, surprisingly, right? Just because Topaz is already coming back, and so that's why Jinx is still good. But Hotbar is more defensive, so it is in a way quite a different archetype. And actually, there's still many ways of building Hotbar, and it's a very relatively underdeveloped kind of archetype, I would say. Confused is basically the old Swirl team, but in this case we have Confused, Swirl, and Pigeon Pose as well, kind of thing. Basically, it's disrupting the draw. Um, so yeah, also going pretty well, and I'll probably go into the match specific matchup in a bit. The other thing that is worth mentioning is Sponge is actually doing okay. Not like the best, but still doing okay. And Story Fighter also doing not bad as well in this meta, especially against Leafy. But the matchup is relatively polarizing, as you'll see later. And then, yeah, the other like these kind of archetypes, there's just not many teams out there, so that's why I'm not going to say too much because it's really like literally, let's say for Tiny Fan, it's probably just like one team out there, so it's hard to say. I guess the notable one that really goes down is Momo, unfortunately, right? It's just, yeah, Epic Era is just tough, and also the nerf is really a bit much for Momo, so Momo is probably not gonna be seen anytime soon, and maybe I'll start to also trim down a bit of this list as well. Having said that, I think we do see Momo team still up. Well, we still have four Momo team at the top 1,000, but they will probably disappear at some point, just because it's just getting tough, especially after the nerf. Okay, so that's kind of the gist of it. The other archetypes I never really mentioned is that they are probably a bit even. Like Poison is not doing the best at the top, but still doing okay, still hanging on. Triple R again, similarly, like really not doing too well at the top, but still hanging on at the top 1,000 kind of thing. Yeah, okay, so let's just get into the specific archetype, and this one is really um, yeah, just too much data, right? Just because they have just so much uh yeah, so many different archetypes. So I'm actually just going to scroll to the top 1,000. Reason being, this is like the most like data points, right? And of course, as usual, don't look at the stuff on the right and don't look at the stuff at the bottom because they're literally just like one cocoon team right out there and just happen to maybe win a few games and does well. That kind of thing. But I just want to include them so that like, people kind of is aware that there could be a team like that. Okay, but let's just talk about the top teams, and those are the ones that really have a bit more conclusive data on. So first of all, Leafy. Leafy, tough against Topaz. So the order here is the same as here, right? So basically, if you see Leafy, then the next one is Topaz, and so on. So Leafy, tough against Topaz, tough against Sustain as well. So the rest is fine, I would say, in terms of matchup. So this one is, yeah, the Tri-Spike Leafy also takes advantage of Leafy. So that's like a sub-archetype of Leafy that actually takes advantage of Leafy just because of the spikes. And then Confuse actually doing pretty well against Leafy as well. Sorry to I have to scroll a bit just because I do want to check like which one is which as well. But yeah, so Leafy still very strong. It's just that there are counters out there already, right? So even Purge and yeah, Story Fighter. Actually, Story Fighter is a big one that I should mention. Right? Story Fighter, uh, the pure damage version of it, right, also does very well against Leafy. So Leafy definitely has this counter. Yeah, and then let's talk about Leafy's counter, right? The main one, or the first one, is Topaz. Topaz is still very strong against Leafy from previous seasons. We know that, and Topaz actually is doing extremely well across the board. The only ones that are tough, right? Let me just go. Is Jinx, right? So Jinx and Hotbot. Okay, right. So Jinx and Hotbot are the two that are really keeping Topaz in check. So maybe I'll just make it smaller so you can like see everything. Okay. So yeah, this might be a bit too small. But okay, let me just make it bigger again. Yeah, I probably prefer this way. Okay, so um, yeah, so this really is Topaz taking advantage of the meta at the moment, especially against Leafy. Just have to dodge the Hotbot and Jinx stuff. And then for poison, there are kind of two different type of poison. One is with Finoki and one without Finoki. Without Finoki is the one that has more sleep, I would say, I think. And yeah, unfortunately, right, it's just that Leafy and Topaz are going so fast. That's why it's a bit tough, right? Otherwise, it has a pretty good matchup across the board. It's like at least even matchup. It's just Leafy and Topaz is just too fast, so that's why it's like keeping poison, like both kind of poisons in check. Sustain now literally is just taking advantage of Leafy, really. Yeah, Leafy and Leafy Tri-Spike. But basically, the only good matchup is really just Leafy at the moment. Topaz is a bit even, but otherwise, right, Poison and Jinx is very tough on Sustain. So Sustain really is getting farmed on by different teams as well. So there are multiple ones as well. Let's just see, Hot Bud. We see here is like Confused, right? Story Fighter for sure as well, and Tiny Fan. All those are just farming on Sustain at the moment. Okay, and then Jinx is actually okay, I would say. Okay in the sense that it's hanging on. Tough against Leafy, good against Topaz. Yeah, Poison is always tough, so I would say that's why Jinx is still not the best, is because there's so much Poison out there and so much Leafy out there. And then yeah, the owl stuff as well, not so much. So the stuff on the right, I don't really see too much, but it's really more about Jinx is really just about farming sustain and Topaz as previous seasons. Okay, I'm gonna just sort of skip a bit and then I talk about Hot Butt. Hot Butt is one of those that are pretty good. Uh, and yes, against let me just check here. Hot Butt, yeah. So if you go further up, it's similar in that sense. Good matchup against Leafy. It's okay, right? It's not like the best, but also like it's a positive win rate, right, I would say. Good against Topaz, which is that's why it's good, and also good against us. I think this is sustain as well. Yeah, basically, as you can see, pretty much a positive win rate across the board, at least the top front, right? This is the key part, right? Is the stuff on the left, which is the most popular ones. The tough matchup is actually Triple R, which you really don't see. So, yeah, that's why Hotbot is just so good, right? The other is Sponge. So, yeah, Triple R, Sponge, that kind of thing, right? Well, they ramp up and or they combo, right? Though they deal basically like massive damage in one go, and that's why it's just hard for Hotbot team to deal with. But otherwise, right, you can see it is pretty hard for the other teams to deal with. So Hotbot is pretty good in this meta. The other one that's pretty good is Confused. The Confused work a bit differently from Hotbot in the sense that Confused disrupt the draw power as opposed to like I guess the Hotbot and Jinx both disrupt the discard power, and then you have to wait until the next draw, whereas Confuse really just put stuff in your draw pile. And the main one is actually like it's very good against Leafy. Against Poison and Topaz is alright, but it's really mainly farming on Leafy and Sustain. Okay, so that's why Confused it is actually it's still quite viable. It's just that it's very hard to get the Axies. So that's why I think this is like it has definitely has a lot of potential, and I can see top players playing it. It's just that you probably won't see that much, especially at the lower end of the ladders, because it's you require very specific axes to work. Yeah, so uh, the tough matchup really, right, kind of the only tough matchup is Jinx. Okay, other than Jinx, Confuse is really doing quite well. Of course, like against Topaz is still 50-50. Vinoki Poison is also 50-50-ish. Triple R also 50-50, but still, right? I mean, it's not unwinnable, so that's why I think it is Confuse is pretty good. And then I guess I want to talk about Sturdy Fighter as well. This is the pure damage variant. Oh, one thing I should have mentioned is that for Topaz, right? Actually, if I just scroll down very quickly, I have more information on the in the blog post. For example, I actually mentioned about the rune usage for Topaz and what makes Topaz so good in the Epic era is Sturdy Fighter for sure. And also Heaven's Echo. So these two really like just allows Topaz team to gain a lot of shield and then deal massive damage. Okay, so let's just get back here. So yeah, talking about Story Fighter. So in this case, it's the pure damage version, right? Meaning they deal pure damage, right? They stack a lot of shield on the Story Fighter and deal a lot of damage. And yeah, again, it's actually farming on Leafy. It's okay against Topaz, Finoki, Poison. Actually tough against the non-Finoki Poison, probably because there's more um, sleep, right? More disruption, especially Potato Leaf kind of thing. So makes it harder for the Story Fighter um, Axie. And yeah, of course, very good against the sustain just because it's literally ignore the shield and steal the shield as well. And yeah, tough against Jinx, unfortunately though. So that is kind of what's like holding it back. So basically, Story Fighter is, you can see, a very polarizing matchup. Yeah, sometimes you just lose hard to hot butt, confused. Yeah, Jinx, that kind of thing, you just can't beat them. Uh, Whereas you have a very good matchup against Sustain. So definitely want to look out for just because it is pretty good against Leafy. And finally, yeah, I do want to talk about Sponge. The reason being, right, okay, the other ones I don't want to mention now is because there are only like a few teams. Even though they're short, Sponge also maybe like you see a bit more play, and that's why I want to talk about it. I've at least faced quite a number of Sponge teams on the ladder, and it's actually pretty bad against Topaz, just because Topaz can just go very fast and kill the Sponge. But actually, it's okay against Leafy, and it has pretty much like a very good matchup against the rest, especially for Poison, Sustain, um, yeah, and a Hot Butt kind of thing as well. So like basically, it farms on all the slower teams, I would say, maybe except for Jinx. Um, yeah, so that's why I think Sponge could be good. Having said that, if Topaz is gonna be even more popular, which it's looking that it might be the case, then Sponge might not have a good time just yet. But who knows? I mean, of course, we just wait for the Mystic era. Once we have the Heart of Ocean, then Sponge is probably going to be pretty crazy, especially now without Heart of Ocean is already somewhat viable. So yeah, definitely one to look out for. Okay, so actually that's pretty much it. Of course, there's a lot more data up there. I do want to just highlight, if you want to go see more data, look go into the blog post. Yeah, just looking at what kind of runes are people playing and that kind of thing. And yeah, okay, so I'll probably just end this here. So thanks for joining me, and I'm aiming to do this once a week. So definitely stay tuned and see you in the next video.